Hello. So this is the video that I decided to post for giving you some tips on writing your final paper in APA format. Since we're a science class, psychology and sociology are all social science or behavioral science classes. And the final project I'm requiring you all to write in APA format, which is a science writing format. I know that you all are unfamiliar with this format, so I just wanted to give you a few quick tips and show you a paper that I have written actually in APA format, and then also how to navigate Word and open up the template for APA format in Word. So let me share my screen here and show you a paper that has been written in APA format. Of course, this is one that I've done recently. So the very first part of a paper in APA format is the title page. And the title page is the first page. The only thing on the first page is your title. So what you'll see here is a title of the paper and then identifying information so that we know who wrote the paper and for what class and when it was due. You can include my name as well for the instructor, but you don't have to necessarily. One of the unique features of a title page on APA is what's known as a running head. So here you'll see running head. A running head is just a shortened version of your title. The title for this essay is short already, so I just went ahead and included it in the running head. But if you had a longer title for your final project, like an analysis of my life and my family, that's too long to put up here with the running head, so you just want to shorten it to my life or my family or final project or something like that. Once you have typed the shortened title in the running head section here, then it will automatically populate to all the other pages in your paper. So we type in here, let me change this. Now it says Essay 1, and you'll see all the rest of the pages also say Essay 1. So fairly easy to navigate. Word has a template that you can use to type APA style papers. I'm going to show you how to access that and utilize that here in just a minute. So essay first page is the title page. The second page, if you choose to complete, is the abstract page, and here is where you want to use this template. The template on Word already is set up, so you can actually just enter the information that you need to write an APA style paper. So sometimes it will come up in your list here of new documents, and if not, then you can always type it in the search bar, and it says APA style report, APA style paper. You can use either. This is the 6th edition, which is the newest edition, so I would click that and then create, and it'll bring up a blank APA style format. So again, here's your title page. You want to enter your information in with the title of your project and your name. You do not need the author's note, so you could actually eliminate this. Author's note is for funding purposes or sharing data, like if you're writing a research report or publishing your research findings. So this just gives information about how to contact you if somebody was interested in your research or wanted to give you money, stuff like that. So we're not doing that, so you can eliminate that. And then again, your running head is your shortened title, so essay number 2, and once I type that in, it's populated on all the other pages. And the other, let's put our title on here. Once you enter your title as well, the title will then be populated on the third page of your paper. So it starts right here, Essay 2. So it's automatically populated for you. This template is actually really nice because it does a lot of the work for you. So the second page of an APA style paper is the abstract. page. Now my paper didn't have an abstract page. It wasn't required. I'm not necessarily requiring an abstract, but if you want that A paper, remember, use your grading rubric, and the grading rubric outlines specifically what I'm looking for an A paper, or the row that says excellent on it. An abstract is included there. So an abstract is just a very short summary of what your paper is about. So one paragraph, and usually it's 2 to 3 sentences, so it's a really, really short summary, very concise. That just details what you're writing the paper about. So in this case, if it was your final project, then you would just put something in there about writing a final project over different concepts related to the course material. The keywords, again, you don't need, you can eliminate this. Keywords are for research paper or publication, and those keywords then are how the publication is listed in an electronic database or a library database. So when individuals type in specific keywords like episodic memory or social support network or something like that, then your paper, your research paper would be brought up so that they could use it for their purposes, their research paper or whatever. So you don't need that because we're not doing a research paper. All right, so those are the first 2 pages, the title page and the abstract page. The third page is your content. And with content, let's go back here. You've got your title, and then of course the introductory paragraph. And the introductory paragraph is the paragraph that grabs the reader, tells the reader what this paper is going to be about, why they should read it. So you want to make sure that you have an introductory paragraph that's pretty interesting. Although the only reader that's going to be reading your paper is me. So write your introductory paragraph, and then what we have here is our header for our first concept. The template has the headers available. So all you have to do is type in whatever the header is. So social support, let's say. All right. Or even we could, depending on what concepts you use, trust versus mistrust from Erickson's theory. So that would be the first concept that you're going to talk about. All right. So again, once you put your header in there, then the first thing you want to write is your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is your introductory statement of this paragraph, and it's supposed to be interesting and grabbing. So my feedback, or my thesis statement for administering feedback, of course, feedback may be the most neglected component of assessment. That's an introduction to what this paragraph is going to talk about. When you talk about your concepts, of course, once you're writing the paper from the perspective that somebody's going to read your paper that has no psychological or sociological background. So it needs to be thorough and elaborative enough that if they have no experience with psychology or sociology, they could read your paper and completely understand, or mostly completely understand, the concepts that you're talking about. So on your paper, one of the first things that you want to do after you put in your header here is open up what you're going to talk about and then give a definition and description from the textbook. What is this concept? So how do we conceptualize this concept in academics or in the classroom? All right. Once you've finished giving that definition and description from the classroom learning, then the second part of the paragraph is describing how that concept looks in the real world. So how does this play out in the real world? How would we know it when we see it in the real world? That's where that personal example comes into play. So the first part is the book part, or the academic part, and the second part is the real world part, or how this looks in your life. The template here has these other headings, and again, these headings are more for research papers, so we don't need them. You can actually eliminate those. The only heading that you need is this first heading here, and if you don't use the template and you need to go on to a new concept and you want to add the heading, then up here in the toolbar you can click heading 1, and heading 1 will give you the positioning of the mouse so that you can type in your next heading. All right, so, and make sure they're bold-faced. Headings are bold-faced. So now you have your next concept that you're going to talk about, and you're going to follow that same format. Describe it from the academic standpoint. So what does the book say? How does the book define it? And then from your personal standpoint, or how it looks in the real world, how does this play out in your personal experience? Okay, so once you've done all that, let's go back to my paper. So we've got administering feedback as a concept. We've got appropriate versus inappropriate feedback as a concept. So you want to go through and do that for all of your concepts. And then at the end of your paper is the conclusion paragraph. So you want to make sure that the header says conclusion. And then you write a short paragraph that summarizes your paper, closes it down so everybody knows, the reader knows that you're done. But then also I've asked you to answer a couple of personal growth questions. So pay attention to the grading rubric. It does say personal growth. The last column says personal growth, and there are a couple of questions there like, what did I learn from this project? How does this project influence my understanding? There are different questions there. I want you to also include those answers in your conclusion paragraph. So make sure you're answering those. Once you're finished with the content, then the last page of your paper is called the references page, not works cited, references. It's very similar to works cited, except for we call it a different title. It's still alphabetical order. And when you're listing references, you typically list the last name of the author of the source first, and then their initials, the date the resource was published, like the book was published or the journal article was published, the name. So in this case, this is a journal article, so the name of the journal is Effects of Feedback on Performance, etc. And then it came from the journal Psychology Science. And a lot of times research journals have a volume number and an issue number, so you will include that. And then the page numbers, the journal article was found in that journal. So 262 to 278 were the page numbers for that particular journal article in this journal. For textbook, it's pretty much the same. So author's last name and then initials, the date of the publication of the book, and then the title of the textbook. So this one's Culturally Diverse Children and Adolescents. Assessment, Diagnosis, and Treatment. And then where was it published? So in this case, it was published in New York. And then who published it? Guilford Publications Incorporated is the publishing house. So for example, our textbook, like in psychology, it would be King, L, and then the publishing date is 2017. The Science of Psychology, An Appreciative View is the title of the textbook. I believe it was also published in New York, and the publication house is McGraw-Hill Incorporated. So sociology would be Massionis J, and I believe it's also 2017, but I could be wrong. And then the title of the book is Society, the Basics. I'm not sure. I think it might have been New Jersey where that's published, and then it's Pearson Publications Incorporated. Developmental psychology, again, depends on what textbook we're using, but you want to use the last name of the author first, and then their initials, the date of the publication, the name of the book, where it was published, and then the publication house. If you pull an article off the internet, like for example down here, here's an article that was pulled off the internet, then you want to include where you got it from, so the web address. So here the author's last name and initials, the publication date, and it was 10 fallacies in psychological assessment, and then retrieved from the web address. If you get like an actual research article off the internet, you do the same thing, but you want to make sure you put all of the other information. So the title of the research article, the journal that it came from, the volume and issue number, the page numbers, and then retrieved from web address. That way, if somebody wanted to go back in and use those resources for maybe a paper that they have. They have the information where they can go look it up and pull up those journal articles or research articles. So lastly, citation. I want to talk a little bit about in-text citation. Anytime you use information that is not your original work, you have to give credit to where that information came from. So, for example, I have some information here that's not my original thoughts. I summarized it in my words, but it wasn't my original thought, so I have to give credit to the source where it came from. So what I do is I summarize the thought in my own words. So exceptions include releasing the testing materials to persons properly trained and qualified in assessment, or a court subpoena specifically abates these terms. And that comes from this resource, Groth, Marinat, and Wright, from 2016. So this is the author's last names of the book and the publication date of the book. That's where I got that information from. Even though I summarized it in my own words, it's not my original thought. So I have to give credit where credit is due. Now sometimes we will take information directly from a resource without altering it. So this one's altered because I used my own words. But sometimes it makes more sense to take the information directly out of the resource. In this case, you're going to put quotation marks around the information, and then you're going to also put the page number where that information was taken from that resource. So I included this in the sentence structure, and you can do that, but you can also put this information at the end of the sentence, all right? And you would do this with your definitions of your concepts, because this is essentially a definition here. So Groth, Marinat, and Wright, 2016, page 59, distinguish test data, because it's a definition of test data, as, and then quote, raw and scale scores, such as subscale scores and test profiles, end quote. So you could put the definition of test data is, and then raw scale scores, yada, 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 comma, end quote, and then parentheses, Groth, Marinat, and Wright, comma, 2016, comma, page, PG, 59, and then end parentheses, period. So you could do this at the end of the sentence, or like I did here, which is a little bit higher level writing skill, a little bit more sophisticated. You can include it in the sentence itself. You are probably going to need to do this, so quoting the direct source without altering it when you put in vocabulary definitions for your concepts. So when you talk about trust versus mistrust or social support, and you pull those vocabulary definitions right out of the textbook, then you'll put the quote, and exactly as a textbook defines that concept, and then end quote, and then include your citation with the author's last name, the publication date, and the page number where that definition came from. So really, I'm not much of a stickler on this citation in the actual content. I want to see you try, but if you don't get it quite correct, it's not going to affect your grade a great deal. Mostly what I'm looking for is content. How are you bridging the gap between what we learned in class and how it looks in the real world? So the document, the template for APA on Word gives you an example of how to do a citation at the end of a sentence here in your content. Also gives you the reference page and then how to cite. Here's an article example. Here's a textbook example, right? So it does give you a little bit of a guideline how to do that. Also, all of this, the footnotes, the tables, all of the last part of this template you can remove, because this is more appropriate for a research paper. We're not doing research technically, so you don't need that. And those are the basic components of APA. It's really not that much different from MLA or Chicago style. There are just a couple of additional types of formatting, unique formatting issues that you want to be aware of. I also gave you the Purdue Owl website in your final project packet that you can utilize to go look up the different formatting techniques for APA. You can ask me questions at any time and I'll help. If you want me to edit and give suggestions for your final project, I can do that. It just, you have to make sure that you send the rough draft to me with advanced warning, enough time for me to look over and make those suggestions. So I can't do 50 million editing suggestions the night before the project is due. I really need at least a few days. A week is better, but a few days. And I'm always up for any kinds of questions that you might have regarding APA formatting and how to make your paper a little bit better. So essentially that is APA in a nutshell. So try to get this video uploaded for you, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and let me know what questions you have, and we'll just keep plugging away for the rest of the semester. Have a good afternoon, and I look forward to seeing more of your assignments.